How do everybody? So we've got another really interesting story here. Now I was originally going to go back to Europe again, Germany in fact, with that story of the one of the members of their parliament having been exposed, licking public toilets and other disgusting things. Really getting Weimar Republic vibes coming out of Germany at this moment in time. I do find that quite worrying because we know what happened the last time that happened. But unfortunately, people, when they're desperate, will go to desperate solutions. A little bit on that actually. I am very concerned, and I do not support radicalisation, by the way. But unfortunately, many governments in the West are being incredibly weak, and we do have what can only be described as rampant degeneracy happening. And I believe that that politician in Germany is a prime example of that. We also saw it in Spain not so long ago as well, where a politician there was, I think, kicked out of the Spanish Parliament after videos surfaced of him eating feces and smearing himself with it. Absolutely disgusting. But unfortunately, what that does is it makes people absolutely desperate. And when the so-called moderate centrist parties fail to deal with it for fear of being labelled some sort of phobe or ist or igot of some kind, it then only leaves the door open for extremists to come in who will turn around and say things like, I'll deal with this problem so long as you don't care about how I deal with it. And that for me is quite worrying, because it should be the so-called rational grown-ups in the room who are clamping down on this, but unfortunately they're unwilling to. But anyway, that point aside, let's get on with this story. A bit like during the week in France, where we saw the almost James Bond-esque style breakout of a drug kingpin, we have a story here of counter-terror police find a radioactive materials needed to make a dirty bomb in a garden shed. In square quotes, far-right extremist, close quotes, 31, is arrested in Leafy Village outside Luton. Wild. What a crazy story this is. Now, I haven't read it. Sorry, I've been drinking my tea a bit too quick. I do apologise for that. Get a bit of hiccups. I haven't read the story. Let's get on with it. Find out what's happened. I just saw the headline and I was like, wow, doing a video on that. 31-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of terror offences by police who allegedly seized dirty bomb, explosives and radioactive material from a garden shed as they swooped in. I mean, where the heck do you get this sort of stuff from? I mean, what's going through his mind as well? I mean, if they're classing him as far right, I'm going to assume he's probably more than likely English, living in Luton. I think if he was of an immigrant background, I doubt very much to be calling him far right, although we'll find out in a minute. Oh, by the way, I will link the story below, so please do read it and obviously make your own mind up. Don't just go off what I'm saying, because my take can always be wrong. So please do make your own mind up. The unnamed man was cuffed by Bedfordshire police cops on suspicion of causing explosions and possessing Class A drugs following searches at a property on Hyde Road, Caddington, Bedfordshire, which they began searching on May 6th. Now, the fact he's got Class A drugs there is making me think that this man isn't actually a far-right extremist. He could very well be, but I'm thinking that there may be something else here, and they may be pinning the far-right onto him as a way of politicising the situation. Reports suggest the suspect lives there with his parents and is described as a loner with Asperger's syndrome. Well, there's a surprise. We have an autistic man who's doing something autistic. That is actually not an excuse for bad behaviour. And as somebody on the autistic spectrum, by the way, I'm fully aware of the eccentricities of autism. He was bailed following his first arrest, but further searches discovered further suspicious substances. Sorry, but I find that really funny because I can relate. And obviously, I've never made a dirty bomb, but I can relate to doing crazy things and be thinking, this is fine. This is fine. Nobody will be bothered by this. And then when people find out, I'm like, what the hell are you doing, Dave? It's like insane. You could have killed yourself. The operation was then passed to Metropolitan Police counter-terror officers, and the man was arrested again on suspicion of possessing articles for terrorist purposes. He remains in police custody. A meeting was held at the community centre in Caddington on Tuesday, where locals were told investigations were chemical-related. Investigators reportedly found Nazi memorabilia in their searches. Right, that's where the far right bit's coming from then. Now, Nazi memorabilia may not be, he could very well be actually a car carrying, like he may very well praise the old AH, who we can't mention on YouTube, the man with the moustache, the Charlie Chaplin style moustache. But with him being on the autistic spectrum, he may just have a bit of a thing for the memorabilia. He might like it may be a thing that's sort of like in vogue with him, so to speak. He might find the taboo nature of it alluring, and the fact you can't, because that's the thing with autism as well. You tend to get focused in on things and become quite obsessed with them, not because you like them or agree with them, and sometimes it can be because people tell you not to do things, and it can really grab your attention even more, and then it becomes like a forbidden fruit sort of thing. But again, I don't know. Autism is a spectrum at the end of the day. It's not identical for everybody with it either. The incident has been the talk of the town, yeah, I bet it has, amongst locals in the area who have wondered exactly what had been happening on Hyde Road after it was swarmed with emergency vehicles last week. It reminds me of a story actually, which happened in America, where there was a Boy Scout who made a nuclear reactor in his shed as well. I think it was in Los Angeles, I think that happened. And I think what he'd done is he'd gone around and he'd got like loads of fire detectors, because smoke alarms have radioactive material in them, but he'd also gone around like pawn shops and stuff getting really old antique clocks and watches for the glow-in-the-dark material, because that's also radioactive, and he spent ages collecting it all, and then he refined it, and he made an actual a small-scale nuclear reactor in his house, in his garden shed. Great, absolutely crazy. Bedfordshire police would initially say that a man had been arrested after receiving reports of suspicious substances being stored at the address. It must have been his mum and dad who said about this, Specialist investigators were then called in, and a small controlled explosion was carried out in a nearby field by explosives ordnance disposal crews. Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing about this because it's serious, but it's hilarious in my opinion. It then said earlier this week, prior to the suspect being arrested, that a considerable number of different items had been found. Reports in The Sun, which first reported the suspect's background, suggest investigators dressed in hazmat suits wielding Geiger counters used to measure radioactivity, things like that, something that noises they've been seen coming and going from the property. Locals said the arrested man was a loner who rarely went outside, and if he did, would venture out with a hood up covering his face. His mother had allegedly told villagers he collected chemicals as a hobby. Yeah, just collect chemicals as a hobby, why don't you? Adding that she was adamant it was nothing to do with terrorism. Yeah, I mean, that does actually sound plausible, to be honest with you. I'm obviously not like really, really autistic. I mean, I am autistic, but I mean, for somebody who's highly, really like up to their eyeballs in the spectrum, I could actually see somebody collecting chemicals, as crazy as that sounds, and thinking there's nothing wrong with it. He's obviously, I'm not saying he's again, I don't know the ins and outs of this story. He could actually be a dangerous far right nut job, and he could have been planning a bomb, or he could just be an incredibly challenged person with a real lack of understanding of the dangers or the moral implications of this. And in which case, if it's the latter, obviously, if it's the former, he needs to obviously go to prison. If it's the latter, he probably needs help. I think he needs somebody to be with him most of the time. He probably needs professional help. And I'm not saying locking him up, but I mean maybe having somebody who comes and visits him daily or something like that. And spends time with him. It may just be that's what he needs. Obviously, what he's done is not right. By the way, you should not be storing chemicals in a shed or things like that, especially not nuclear material. This is absolutely not okay what he's done. I'm not trying to excuse that. But if it is more of an autistic collection thing, he definitely needs support and help. Get my words out. Bedfordshire Police said, "We can confirm we are working with SO15, the Metropolitan Police's Counter-Terrorist Command, which has taken over the investigation." The Met said in a statement released on Tuesday night that it did not believe there was any further risk to local residents or the wider public. It said a man from Bedfordshire has been arrested on suspicion of a terrorism offence as part of an investigation led by officers from the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command. The arrest comes after an investigation was initially launched by Bedfordshire Police on 6th of May when items, including a number of suspicious substances, were found at a residential address in Caddington. Specialist officers continue to carry out searches at the address at Caddington. A number of items and substances have been recovered from the address. Officers continue to work closely with colleagues from Bedfordshire Police and the Eastern Region Special Operations Unit, and they have the acronym there for it, as the investigation continues. Quite a short story, although it has gone for 10 minutes, obviously. Quite worrying, I'm not going to lie, that somebody's done that, but also quite humorous as well. I'm also not going to lie about that. It did obviously tickle my funny bone, and I shouldn't laugh because it's really serious. If you have enjoyed that story, please do like and subscribe, and definitely please put comments below, because this story is something special, and I really, really want to hear people's opinions on it. And if you do disagree with me or whatever, please do. I love people telling me different things. I'm not a closed book. I am willing to change my mind and my opinions on things. But please do comment. If you're going to comment on anything, please comment on this, because this is just a brilliant, brilliant story. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you and goodbye.